Hello and welcome back to the final month of our underwater Stitchy make-along. I had initially planned to do a very short video on some finishing touches, but it turned out, like many finishing touches do, that it took far longer than I had anticipated. So this whole month is going to be about adding these finishing touches. Now, you don't necessarily have to do this. If you're thrilled with the way that your scroll looks, you may not want to do any more work on it, and that's perfectly okay. But I found, as a maximalist, I found that there were some areas that I felt could use more stitching rather than less. And one of the things that I did was that I added a lot of these running stitches to parts of my scroll. And I'm going to show you two different ways that I use these stitches. So one of the ways that I use running stitch is to modify the color of an area. Now in this part here, I've already started stitching on this area because I felt like those dark blue, purpley blue whales were not standing out very well against the really dark green cloth. The colors were too similar to each other. They stand out really well against the orange area there, but not so well against the green. So I decided that I would try to lighten up some of that really dark water area by adding light blue straight stitches so that the whales can show up a little bit better. So there are two ways to add contrast. One is light and dark contrast. So if you've got something dark against a light background, or the opposite, something light against a dark background, your object will show up well. However, if they're both light or both dark, it's harder to see them. The other way is to use contrasting colors. So colors that are very different. So blue and orange contrast quite strongly. So the blue shows up against the orange. Or other pairs that are like that, Christmas colors, red and green, are not accidental. Those are very intentionally chosen to be strong contrasting colors. And the other two that are strong contrasts are purple and yellow. So I feel like the whales are showing up better now. However, I'm not sure I like the intense contrast between the very light blue and the very dark green. So I feel like I still want to work more on that area, but for now I'm going to leave it as it is. And maybe if I leave this for a week or two or a month or two, I'll decide that looks good as it is. But let's see how things go. Another way that I use this running stitch here is to merge the bits of cloth into a cohesive scene. So in this area here where I've got these penguins hanging out underneath the northern lights. No, wait. Penguins live in the southern hemisphere. It's the southern lights. So these are the southern lights. I thought this variegated thread that I have here is the perfect color to coordinate with these background pieces of cloth. And basically the only thing that I plan is I make a point of stitching over top off the edges of the pieces of cloth so that they lie flat on the surface rather than fraying and getting lifted up. And it's really up to you if you like the fluffy look of the frayed edges for some purpose in your scene, then that's an absolutely good choice. But because I want this part of my scroll to look like the sky, I don't necessarily want a lot of texture. I want it to be fairly flat. So I'm really enjoying the way that this variegated thread is combining with the background stitches. In some places it shows up more because that part of the thread contrasts with what's going on in the background, and then in some places it blends in and it's all good. I like all of it, and I'm not giving a lot of thought to how far I go back and forth. Sometimes I go back and forth against over the whole scene, and other times I turn around when I get part way across, and it's just on a whim, whatever I feel like. I'm not really tied to any particular outcome. I'm just using up thread, and I'm liking the way that that background is starting to integrate and become more cohesive and less like separate chunks of cloth. And the more stitching I do, the more that will become apparent. This is a great thing to add to your scroll if you're feeling overwhelmed or if you've got a lot going on this month and you just like some really simple, straightforward, relaxing stitching to do. So this would be perfect because there's no pattern or design. It's just running stitch back and forth and back and forth. And you'll notice that I'm going from side to side, but I could also do the stitches up and down because the Northern Lights often have a very... I gotta stop calling these the Northern Lights, unless this is an alternate universe where there are penguins that live in the Arctic. The sky that I have going on here could also have vertical elements. It's up to you, whatever you feel like doing, or you don't have to do this. Or perhaps you have a different night sky if you did this part of your scroll. Maybe you'd like to keep your night sky really dark with little twinkling lights or snow coming down on your penguins or in another part of your scroll. It's again, that's really up to you how you would like to have your scroll look. Yours doesn't have to look like mine. It's entirely up to you how you want it to look. And if this is a really busy month for you, maybe you don't want to add any more. Maybe you just want to call yours done. But I'm going to keep stitching on this part of my scroll until I feel like I've done enough, or until I don't feel like stitching anymore. And then I might come back another day and add more. And remember, it's something that India Flint, another textile artist, said in a workshop that I did once with her. Everything is beautiful in the end, and if it isn't beautiful, it isn't the end. So I encourage you, if you feel like your piece isn't done, to add more and see what happens. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video, and there'll be a few more finishing up videos coming up soon. Bye for now.